So the big question today that comes to us from the gospel lesson is, how far are we, each of us, willing to go to forgive those who offend us, those who are different from us, who do what maybe we don't like? Sometimes we're willing to go the extra mile, sometimes the extra 2 miles, and sometimes we can say, I'll forgive, but I'll never forget. Forgiveness is a tricky question, but then when you consider what Robin read in Paul's letter to the Romans this morning, it gets even more kind of a gray area, because the question is, what do we need to forgive? And what doesn't need to be forgiven? What's okay? Last week, you may recall that we talked about that a little bit in the centuries of Christian tradition and back even in the nation of Israel. There's been a transition, a change. There's always change. But our world and the pandemic world that we live in today is full of change almost every day. And how we deal with that change, how we manage that change in our own personal lives and in the life of the church and in the life of our family and friends and in our community can be a challenge, because we don't always know. And we have to be constantly asking ourselves, what is right? What is wrong? What was right? What is wrong? In the Hebrew tradition, okay, I'm not going to offer you a pork sandwich, am I? And if you take that pork sandwich and eat it, oh. But did you hear the words of the gospel today? God's mission, God's purpose is not to condemn us for breaking the law, but rather to lift us up in the keeping of the law. We have to decide if we live and choose to eat a pork sandwich, as long as we remember, hopefully, to say, Dear Lord, I thank you for this food. That's no more right or wrong than the one who says, I'm just not going to eat that pork sandwich. Both bring honor to the same Lord. And many of the choices we make in life, many of the decisions we have to make about our relationship between us and our God, our relationship between us and our neighbor and family, many of those choices are our choices, and we are accountable for those choices. The measure needs to be, do they bring honor to the faith that we profess? We talked a little bit last week about how some of those choices have changed over the years. And in the 21st century, for many people, there's still a question. If you read the Bible and take the Bible word for word, what it says, how is it that we in the Lutheran Church can ordain women? How is it that we in the Lutheran Church can say, I'd love to do the wedding for you two guys? How can we in the Lutheran Church say, there is no room for racism, there is no room for injustice, there is no room for hatred in our world and in our lives? And the answer is simply this. We must decide. Paul said it, Martin Luther said it, and I'm telling you today, we, and I don't mean we, I mean you, we must decide. In recent weeks, we've heard how Peter confessed, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, on this rock I will build my church. We stand on that rock of faith. We stand on that truth that Jesus came into the world not to condemn the world, but that the world through him, the whole world, each of us and all of us, might discover new life. And we say, it's not always easy to decide. And it's not always easy to decide. I go to the right, I go to the left, I have to make a choice. But you remember the words of the ancient prophet? These were the words. Whether you go to the right or whether you go to the left, there is a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. If we trust God to be our guide, if we listen to the voice of the Spirit within us, if we follow the Christ who died and was raised up in order that we might live, we will choose correctly and we will follow. Jesus' invitation is for us. Take up your cross and follow me. You will sin, but God's promise is that in making those choices, a wrong choice or a wrong step will be forgiven by the grace of God. And that's the truth. Amen.
Grace Alone Ministries.